It's been an exciting year for Apple from the 5G iPhone launch to the release of Apple Silicon powered Macs. But what's in store for 2021? Stick around. Hey everyone, welcome back to Today in Tech. I'm Julia Beauchamp, and I'm here as always with Macworld senior writer Michael Simon, as well as Computer World executive editor Ken Mingus. We've been blabbering about, practically all year about various Apple updates and announcements, releases, all of 2020. I think you've heard enough about them. Like I mentioned, 5G iPhone, Apple Silicon were two huge stories. But first, today, let's dive into what is going to happen in 2021. So, Mike, I'll go to you. What are some things that our viewers should look out for and expect out of Apple in 2021? Products, software updates, whatever.
I wasn't ready to go first. Do I really have to go
I
first?
can go first. I can go.
All right.
I usually I like to listen to what Ken says and then contradict everything.
Okay, well, exactly. Well, let me start. Let me go first then. Julia, you make a very good point. I mean, 2020 was a big year for Apple. And, I would also throw in for 2020 the virtual events, which I think sort of set the benchmark for how those things should be done. I've gone back and forth trying to figure out what was the biggest Apple story of 2020. And I think it's actually going to be the biggest story of 2021. And it's not the 5G iPhone. I even did a handy drawing. It is, if you can see that, the M1, the Apple Silicon.
I didn't know you had such drawing skills.
It is amazing what a man and a pen can do. But no, I mean, clearly, because it does put Apple at such a pivot point. There's like pre-M1 and post-M1, and 2021 is going to be all about watching that chip and the variations roll out across the line, I think. Mike, now you can dispute me and tell me that I'm wrong.
I mean, I do. I think that if you had to pick one kind of watershed moment of 2020, we knew the iPhone 12 was coming. We knew it was going to have 5G. We knew the Mini and the Max, like all those things. We knew the M1 was coming too. We didn't know it was going to be this. And I think as far as like a kind of a stop and stare moment, that's it. Because the Mac hasn't had. It's been a while. I can't think of it right now. When the last time the Mac had a moment like this? Maybe early 2000s, maybe the
arrival of Mac OS 10, the original
maybe
one
OS
in 2000,
10. Yep,
2001.
that was a big one, but it's been a long time, and it was kind of Apple's forgotten product. They sell them and they make them, and they're known for them. You'd think of them, but not like this. And this is just ground floor. I mean, there's so much more to go, and like the iPhone affects all of Apple's other products, so will this, because we're going to see integration with the iPhone. We already see iOS apps. More people are going to adopt the Mac who are iPhone users. It's going to work with the Apple Watch. There's so many more things that can come to the Mac now. Face ID, that tighter integration. And yeah, I think that'll be the story of 2021. I mean, you can say that was the biggest story of 2020. But it's going to be a widespread story over the course of the next 12 months, because they're going to, we got the MacBook Pro, we got the Mac Pro, we got the iMac, and all these computers are going to have different processors. They're going to be doing different things. They're going to be more powerful. We're going to see how Apple works with graphics. Are they going to take on AMD? Are they going to take on NVIDIA with discrete graphics? There's a lot to this story, and that's what I'm looking forward to next year.
Yeah, and to just sort of piggyback on that just a little bit, I don't think this is something for 21, maybe more for 22 or 23, but Apple being able to do its own silicon this way gives it much more flexibility in the kinds of devices it might want to roll out, beyond just the traditional, tablets, phones, and Macs. Maybe we actually will see an Apple Glass or, some other devices that are built around this very powerful chip. And, I think, Mike, what do you think? Are we going to be seeing redesigned MacBook Pros in 21? I mean, I know, that the first ones that came out in 2020 were basically the same old look, but just, entirely new innards. Do you think we're going to get a redesign in 21?
I mean, maybe. I mean, we might see that 14-inch MacBook Pro that we've been hearing about for a while. I mean, it's tricky because it's a laptop. Like it needs a trackpad, it needs a keyboard, it needs a screen. Where do you go with that? It's the same thing, the same criticisms people have of phones, and not just the iPhone, phones in general. It's a rectangular piece of glass. There's only so much you can do. You can keep making the bezels smaller and make the screen go out to the sides more. Samsung is experimenting with folding phones, and that's interesting. Not quite ready yet. Apple's not one to reinvent the wheel unless the wheel needs to be reinvented. And I'm not sure it really does. Yeah, I mean, I would like a MacBook with, maybe a little bit smaller bezels. I certainly want to see Face ID. Otherwise, I don't really know what I'm looking for in a redesign for the MacBook. I mean, it's gorgeous, it's functional, it's sturdy, it it feels like a solid machine, even the Air. It's maybe there'll be a redesign. Maybe they'll trim the bezels a little bit. Maybe they'll do something that I don't really think about. But whether we're going to see like a folding laptop or a glass keyboard or something, some of those like Lenovo type prototypes that are floating around, I don't think so.
Maybe they'll go the 1958 Buick route and add like 3 whatever touch bars to the MacBook Pro, just to glitz it up. It's interesting too, in terms of things looking ahead to 2021. I saw a report this morning about the iPhone, and the assumption is that the iPhone 13, I guess if Apple calls it the 13, is pretty much going to be the same lineup as this year, a little faster chip, but no real no big overhaul. This was the year for the overhaul.
Yeah, that's Apple's thing. They introduced the Mini, and this was more of a talk year, so to speak. And next year we'll just kind of carry that through, like sort of like an S year. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also looking forward to, assuming they're coming, the 5G iPads. That might be something that would get me to upgrade my iPad Pro.
Yeah, I bet the next version of the iPad Pro will have 5G, maybe even the iPad Air. Perhaps not the cheaper one. They might keep that with LTE because of cost concerns. But I'm certain that the Pro, the 11 and the 12.9-inch Pro will get 5G first.
Do we think that's going to be a Qualcomm 5G chip,
or is it going to be Apple actually putting a 5G in the SoC that it's got? Too soon for that?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the rumors go, they only just started that kind of project. So they bought Intel, last April. It takes time for these things to get rolling. Plus, Apple has I think 4 years remaining on its commitment to buy Qualcomm chips. And as we've seen, Qualcomm, the first 5G modem, the X50 was The X55, which is what Apple's using, is way better, and the X60, which is integrated onto their system on chip, is even better. So they're really good. And whatever Apple makes is going to be just so they can cut ties with Qualcomm. The efficiency is much better, and I think we'll see next year, even probably longer battery life, particularly on the 12 mini, which suffers a little bit. It's not so great, and the modem is part of it. But I think Apple will develop a modem, will ship one, for their own purposes, just for safe spacing and power efficiency concerns. But I don't think it's out of any real necessity. I think Qualcomm's doing a pretty good job with the 5G stuff now. They are.
Yeah,
we're obviously talking a lot about hardware. We should probably talk about the overall tech culture and sort of Apple's place in it. Again, something else I had seen, I think it was this week, was Tim Cook talking up the idea of remote work, collaboration, work from home, which is something that Apple was not traditionally, leading on. It really wanted people in its big, beautiful headquarters, because the feeling was that's where in that hallway friction is where a lot of good ideas get shared. But Tim Cook making it, very clear that at least through mid-year and maybe even longer, that the company, the pandemic and what we've all gone through in 2020 has sort of, again, it's a sort of a tech culture pivot. It's not just Apple, but I think the fact that Apple is sort of acknowledging it and actually looking to embrace it in some ways, at least based on what Tim Cook's been saying, could be a precursor for what a lot of companies are doing.
Yeah, and the work from home thing is interesting, uh, mainly because we don't really know what the rest of the year is going to look like. We're, the vaccines are rolling out, and we're assuming it'll all go smoothly, and we'll be back to some semblance of normalcy by what, like June, maybe. But the mindset is what has to also go with that. People are, people are concerned. Like I see a concert on TV from 2 years ago, and like I get like
You flinch. Yeah.
yeah,
Or even an old movie where people
yeah,
are like
yeah,
hugging up on each other and standing near each other and
right.
breathing. It's like scary. Yeah.
It's just, it's not going to change overnight. And I think there also will be some systematic changes amongst companies, that not only can this be done, but in some ways, people are happier and healthier. Maybe other people aren't. Maybe they'll give you the option. I think that they'll be more flexible going forward. Apple, Google, Microsoft, the big companies. And it also opens up their workforce to, the whole world. If you're not forced to go to Apple Park to work, they can someone in Wisconsin, someone in Oregon, someone in India that might not have been afforded the opportunity that they have, maybe they can now. So they're both good and bad aspects to it. Unfortunately, Apple built like a $20 billion campus and no one's there. But I'm sure it'll be bustling. It's at some point soon.
It'll be used, I'm sure. Just
Not the way that, not the way Apple thought about it. Michael, do you have any thoughts about software? I keep trying to figure out, because especially in the last few years, Mac OS to me just feels iterative. We're cleaning up the icons, we're changing the look, some neat little features here and there. And I see the same thing on the Windows side of things too. It's like, it's a very good, solid operating system. So I wonder if the development focus is still going to continue to be on, iOS and the mobile devices, because that still needs work. Do you see any indications where Apple may be going there?
I mean, I think, more of the same. Big Sur was probably the biggest change, but as you say, it was more cosmetic than anything, and not even in a real big way. The icons are, different, and some of the buttons are different, but over the course of how many generations now, Apple like brings little bits of iOS to the Mac, and I suppose we'll see more of that. I think maybe widgets, at some point will make their way over to the Mac, the way we have the widgets on in iOS 14. Maybe something similar to that home screen thing with desktop. I mean, they have spaces and they have the mission control, like they have parts of that, but maybe in a more unified way. But as we were saying before, OS 10 it's rock solid. Well, maybe not rock solid. It's close. There are bits.
it's pretty solid. Yeah.
It's quite good. And I don't think there's a need to reinvent the wheel if the wheel doesn't need to be reinvented. I mean, when they switched from OS 9 to OS 10, there was a real need for that. OS 9 was, ancient,
Creaky
archaic,
and scary.
Yeah, exactly.
and they needed a change. Same thing with iOS 7. I know that was that Apple took a lot of heat for doing that, but they saw the way our devices were going, user interfaces, and the way we were going to be using them. Also, the bigger screens and all this stuff. And iOS 7 kind of opened the or paved the path for that by getting away from, like more static buttons and, more floating stuff, more space, more air, more customization. And that's what that brought. Now, iOS 14, also a big change, but, more cosmetic. If you don't want to use it, you don't really have to. It's all the same. And I don't know if there's a big change on the horizon for that stuff. I mean, the one place where I'd like to see a big change is the iPad, because I want to see Apple just go all in on developing an OS for the tablet, and not, still keeping that one foot in the iPhone land and, in iOS land. Just go all in. Change the whole thing if you have to, but give me an OS that's made for the tablet. The iPad is the only product Apple makes that doesn't have an OS that's specifically built for the hardware. The Mac runs Mac OS. The iPhone runs iOS, which previously was iPhone OS. The Watch runs Watch OS, tvOS, etc. They renamed iPad OS. They didn't change it though. It's still the iPhone OS retooled for the Mac. And that's what I want to see. And I don't know if we're going to. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it's something that even iPad users would necessarily embrace. It would be a difficult transition to make to change the gestures and the desktop and how, what we know of the iPad. But I think it needs to be done.
Yeah, that's a couple of thoughts. I'd like to see that.
That I'm not sure I'm not sure the business case is there, because I think, iPad users are pretty happy with the scaled up, slightly tweaked version of iOS. I agree there's a lot of room to make it more tablety in terms of the functions and I, as I've used the cursor more and more, I'm, coming down on the same side as you've always been. The cursor just doesn't really add anything at best. Back to one of the earlier points you made, though, that, in thinking about how with the M1 chips, that Mac OS can begin to, inherit some of the iOS apps, if it can also begin to inherit some of the iOS, the operating system, the look and feel of iOS, and put that on the desktop. That might make for a more interesting hybrid experience. We'll see. I'll be very, very curious to see if Apple's able to kind of break out of either one of those boxes in June. But I think the M1 is going to really force Apple, and probably a lot of users too, to rethink the devices we use and how we use them, depending on what Apple comes up with.
Sure. I mean, it seems crazy to think that a Mac chip could have such a reverberating effect on the rest of Apple's lineup, but it very well can. I mean, Apple is at its heart a computer maker. There are all these things we use. They're all mini computers, and now that its flagship computing product, its original computing product, is kind of on the same level as the rest of these, wherein they make everything. And now they can, for the first time, really, Apple can do whatever it wants with the Mac. I mean, it was never in that position before. It was always reliant on either Intel or Motorola, or it had the brains of the device were made by somebody else. Now they're controlling this whole thing, and I think it's going to have a seismic effect on the rest of Apple's roadmap for sure. I don't know if we'll necessarily see that in 2021. But in short order, we're going to see just what these chips can do, both in terms of like literally what they can do, but how they can have such a sizable impact on Apple as a company and Apple as a brand. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and I think,
Juliet, I think that gets back to your original question. I mean, 2020 versus 2021, you can't look ahead to 21 unless you look at what's happened in 20. And I think now that Apple has made the big shift, it really positions it for a really successful 21, assuming the economy bounces back, the pandemic is tamed, et cetera, et cetera. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to see what they come up with.
Yeah, and I don't think Apple has been affected by the economy at all. based on A, the quarterly results so far, and B, if you look at the stock for anywhere. I mean, I got my son an iPad Air for Christmas because he's been playing Apple Arcade ever since I got Apple One. He's been playing Apple Arcade more often, and I have a very, very old Mini that has a cracked screen that he's been using since he was like 3.
Oh, come on, man.
New one. Yeah,
Get with the program. I'd say kids
overdue.
It's rough. So I got him the new iPad Air, and I went to Costco a couple of weeks ago, and they had like one left, so I grabbed it, and now it's gone. Like the website's out, Amazon's out. Like it's crazy. Like Apple devices are selling like wildfire right now, and I think that they're going to have a monster holiday quarter, perhaps touching 100 billion or getting pretty damn close to it.
Did you see where they had also ordered up another 30 million iPhones?
Yeah.
So you're right. In terms of, I guess, everybody being stuck at home, they want to use very nice devices.
They're not taking vacation, so they're spending all their money on Apple. But
exactly.
They seem to be doing fine. And those $550 headphones are still back ordered till March.
No comment.
All right, guys. So it seems like you've mentioned, just to sum it up, the story of 2021 is very much going to revolve around the M1 Max, which is going to be exciting to see. Obviously, one of the hugest announcements for Apple in 2020, and I mean, really for all of technology in 2020. So it'll be exciting to see what happens. Good for Apple for having a good 2020. That makes one of us. But 2021, hopefully, will be better. And thank you both, for joining and calling in today. I really appreciate it. And thank you all so much for watching this episode of Today in Tech. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell icon in the corner so you're notified every single time we post a new video. Just a quick note, we probably won't be back until 2021, so happy holidays. Happy New Year. If you have any thoughts on where Apple is going in 2021, let us know in the comments below. I'm pretty sure we did a similar video last year, so if we did, I'll link that below in the description so you can check it out. Let us know how right or wrong we were. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.